Jaya Sriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Surya Vangsha Jayate. Victory to Sanatana Dharma. Victory to the Dharma nation. Victory to the Solar dynasty. Evam Bhavatu. May such victory be so. Namaste, everyone. Welcome. It is absolutely wonderful to be here with you on this evening. And this is indeed going to be the very last live stream satsanga that we are going to be having for 2021. And this is going to be primarily a question and answer session. However, I would ask you to please don't ask your questions yet, because I do want to say a few things first. Again, this being our very last satsanga for 2021, and our next live stream satsanga being next year, that is next Monday, which will be, of course, 2022. So please hold off your questions for now, otherwise I will not see them. Wait until I signal to you that I'm ready for your questions. And in the meantime, I just want to say a few things. First of all, I want to give thanks. I want to give thanks first and foremost to Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. I want to give thanks to God for allowing me to serve him very imperfectly and in the very small way that I have been able to throughout my life. I want to thank God for entering into my life. I don't know how long ago, a very, very long time ago. I want to thank God for introducing Dharma into my life. And I want to thank God for this wonderful mission, this duty that he has given me to restore Dharma to this world. And however imperfectly and to whatever small degree I can fulfill that mission, it is due only to the grace of Bhagavan that I am able to even breathe, what to speak of accomplish anything of any value in this world. So I thank God for everything. The other thing is, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank our audience. I want to thank all of you for being here. And some of you are here consistently. Some of you are here every single week. I see many of the same names again and again and again. And in many cases, I actually know many of you personally. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your questions. I want to thank you for your moral support, for your verbal moral support, and for your prayers for me as a Vedic teacher and for the International Sanatana Dharma Society. Without your prayers, there would be very little that we could accomplish. So thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. I want to thank our moderators, which I never do enough. And we have the most excellent moderators on earth. And it may seem like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not, actually. I've trained these moderators myself, many of them, and they know what they are doing. They are absolutely wonderful. They are my eyes and ears in this live stream. They try their best to answer people's questions when they can intuit that I won't be able to just due to lack of time. And they are a wonderful hidden presence, a divine hidden presence who are always here. So I want to thank our moderators. I also want to thank all of the leaders of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. I may be the president and founder and acharya of this movement, but the truth of the matter is we have so many individuals. We have been blessed by God, and this is no exaggeration, to have so many individuals who are involved with the International Sanatana Dharma Society, who have proven themselves in so many different ways to be leaders. You see them, some of them in action here on this live stream. You see some of them in action on the Discord server that we have, which I would encourage you, if you have not yet joined, if and only if you sincerely want to know more about Sanatana Dharma, please join our Discord server, but you will see so many of our leaders active on there. And then we have those leaders of the ISDS who the public never see. And those are some of our more powerful leaders who truly get things done. I want to thank all of you moderators and leaders of the International Sanatana Dharma Society for taking what was a movement that 23 years ago was something that was a vision that I had in following the orders of my guru and in my, again, tiny attempt to bring Sanatana Dharma to the world, and which now has grown to the point where it's difficult for even me sometimes to keep track of all the things going on. Thank you for all of our moderators, our leaders, our volunteers, our sincere disciples, students, well-wishers. Thank you to our donors. Let me say, as people know, we have been in the midst of our year-end fundraising campaign, and people have been so generous in so many ways with this fundraising campaign. Some people have given a little, some people have given a lot, but for all those individuals who indeed have given, even if you've given $1, I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it is these donations that will help us to now budget our actions, our activities for the next year, all of the many projects that we are working on to bring Dharma to this world. And again, our leaders know exactly what we're working on. And the vast majority of it, the public is not even aware of. But we are indeed working on so many projects to restore Dharma to this world. And the only way that we can do this is indeed with practical help. There is no real movement upon the face of the earth that actually gets things done in this world without donations, without funding. So, like every other serious movement, the ISDS indeed has always needed funding. And we are indeed in the midst of this fundraising campaign. For those of you who have donated, you know who you are. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And this is essentially the last several days of this fundraising campaign. So for those individuals who have not yet donated, I would ask you very humbly, please do so now, if it is within your means to do so. You know, I never want people to donate if it's going to be a financial burden for them. There are some organizations that couldn't care less. Well, we're not one of those. If you truly, truly cannot donate, if it would be a financial burden, please just give us your prayers. But if you are indeed in a position where you can help in a very practical way with a donation, you have a few more days. You have a few more days. This is really the last opportunity to make a tax-deductible donation to the ISDS for 2021 up until 11:59 p.m. on December 31st, I believe. But don't wait till that last second. If you can help us, please do so now. So, again, those are just a few of the thanks that I want to give. If I could, I would actually thank people for the rest of the duration of this time. But the next thing that I want to say very briefly is indeed that we are about to leave 2021 behind. And this year, 2021, has been insane. I'm not talking about for the ISDS, I'm talking about for the world. For the ISDS, on the contrary, actually. As far as accomplishing our mission of bringing light to this world, this has been our best year yet for the ISDS. But for the world, we know what has been going on in America and throughout the entire world. The entire world has been turned upside down mostly in some truly horrific ways that I am not at liberty to discuss in full. But I don't need to. You know what's been happening in the world. It's been a time of confusion. It's been a time of chaos. It's been a time of fear. For too many people, very sadly, it's been a time of hopelessness. It's been a time when some people indeed have felt quite hopeless with all of the crazy things that have been happening in the world and things that we are seeing that are being done to our populations that we have never seen in our lives. And it's understandable that for some people it can seem like a hopeless situation. Well, one thing that I want to tell every single human being who can hear my voice now is do not lose hope. Do not lose hope. Believe me, I know almost more than anyone that the world seemingly has entered into a time of darkness. And more, let me tell you, as I have been telling you for some time, it will continue to get a little bit darker. But at the same time, I am telling you, do not lose hope, and especially for this coming year, because I guarantee you, as dark as things seem to become, they will turn around, and there will be light. And the light will come so rapidly, so quickly, and with such force that will amaze the world. How will this time of light come about? How will this golden age come about that all of us, so many of us, have been waiting for so long? Many ways. And that's not what I really want to go very deeply into, because you know we've done quite a few videos where I talk about the coming golden age. But let me just say this. One of the important ways in which indeed we will see this age of light that is going to dawn in our lifetime is by we ourselves doing everything in our power to help to awaken the masses to the reality of this world and to the reality of God's love. This is what Sanatana Dharma is all about. It is to bring eternal light, true light, to those places of darkness, and to illumine those places of darkness in such a way that the beings inhabiting those places have nothing but hope. Absolute hope. So let me please leave you with this message. 2022, and I'm not sure exactly when. I can pretty much guarantee it's not going to happen 1 minute into the new year. That's silly. Of course not. I can't tell you exactly when, but 2022 will be a time of transition, where for those of you who still maintain hopelessness, you will see with your own eyes that you have reason for hope. You will see with your own eyes that indeed a golden age is coming. So please have hope. Please don't sit and do nothing and wait, however, for this golden age to come about. Take that hope and do everything that you need to yourself help to bring about this golden age that's going to come. That means take this message of Dharma in whatever way you can, through the books, through links to our videos, through links to dharmacentral.com, and spread this message to every single corner of the earth. You're all on social media. You are all on groups, forums, etc. Take this message of Sanatana Dharma and bring it to every living being you know, and in this way, do your part to awaken the people of this world so that they also know that there is hope and they also understand what is the nature of Dharma. In this way, by doing this, you will be doing your part. You will be doing your seva. You will be doing your service to God by bringing light to the fearful minds of the people who are out there in the world, untold hundreds of millions of them. Please do your part. Help us. Help the ISDS. This is the movement, whether you know this or not, whether you fully believe it or not. This is the movement that is on the cutting edge of bringing about this golden age. We are the tip of the spear. Help us. Help us in every and any way that you can, big or small. And may 2022, this next year that is coming up, be a year of hope. Jaya Sriman Narayana. Very good. And with that, I will now signal to everyone that for the duration of our time together tonight, we will have questions and answers. So please, if anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask them. Very good. Let me just say, sadly, for those individuals who are asking overtly political questions, I will not be addressing any political questions whatsoever. I cannot. I'm constrained. The Guru is constrained from answering all questions. But if you have spiritual questions, please feel free. This is a very metaphysical, very, very good question that has never been asked of me, but which I indeed know the answer to. Very good question from Varsaga. Namaste Acharyaji. Is there an infinite Buddha realm within Vaikuntha? Also, thank you for all that you have done to guide us during these dark times. Thank you. Thank you, Varsaga, for being here. I always see your name. You always ask wonderful questions. So thank you very much for being here. And to answer your question very directly, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. There is indeed an infinite Buddha realm. This is something that is quite real. And it is not, very sadly, quite of the nature of what contemporary Buddhists think that it is, but the Buddha himself, indeed, being an Avesha avatar, and this Buddha realm being a realm of liberation and of liberated beings and of conscious beings who are indeed in the state of true nirvana in the Vedic sense, there is indeed such a realm. And I'm not going to go much deeper into it because it opens up a topic that unfortunately we would have to talk about for a very long time so that we can understand this from a purely Vedic perspective. But indeed, that is the answer. Very good. Very good. Here is another question from Zagan Vox. Namaste. I'm Orthodox Christian, but I like your stuff and Vedic knowledge. Thank you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate your comment very, very much. And let me just say that in case this is your first time, but no, it seems like it's not actually, because it seems like you've been here quite a few times. Let me just say that even though technically we don't consider ourselves Christians in the normative sense of that term, in a sectarian sense, indeed, as you may have seen from our previous videos, we have nothing but, there are no words really. What can I say? The most respect and admiration for Jesus as a great sage and teacher. Indeed, he is known as Ishaputra in the Sanskrit language. And as an Orthodox Christian, let me just say that of all the mainstream, let's say, forms of Christianity, that is Orthodoxy, Catholicism, and Protestantism, Orthodoxy is most certainly the closest to the original teachings of Jesus, of those three. The actual closest is Sanatana Dharma. So I want to welcome you here, and please feel free to explore Sanatana Dharma even deeper. And let me assure you, you will have nothing but spiritual fulfillment if you do so. Very good. And please be patient. I'm trying to look through these questions and find some that are wonderful. Very good. Here's an interesting question from Siddharth Maini. Namaste Acharyaji. What is the significance of the Rukmini kidnapping story in the Bhagavatam? How do we know it is not an intentional slip in order to pollute its sacrosanct nature? Very nice. Well, first of all, let me tell you, it is not. This is an actual Leela that takes place. This is one of the several forms of marriage that takes place, and very specifically among Kshatriyas, very specifically. There are quite a few different forms of marriage that are recognized within the Vedic scriptures, actually. And this is one of them. I would not call it a kidnapping. It's not considered to be a kidnapping in any way. That's not the terminology that's used. Rather, the idea is that one of the recognized forms of marriage is indeed to win a bride who tends to be a princess. It's not just anyone, but to win a bride in battle among warriors. And more, this is something that you find, before we get all the anti-Vedic people, oh, well, that's such barbaric Hinduism. No, you find this all throughout the history of ancient and medieval Europe as well. You find this in many, 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 many different cultures, where this involves a very small subgroup of a very specific varna, that is kshatriyas, and not even all kshatriyas, but very specifically individuals who are royalty, where you will have several princes who will battle each other, because this is the accepted norm, in order to win the hand of a princess, and the individual who wins will then take the princess and bring that princess home to his kingdom, and they are married. So again, this is something that is not done ordinarily by just anyone, but it's almost a ritual among Kshatriyas. So that's what it is. It's not a kidnapping. It's one of the recognized forms of marriage, very specifically among some royalty within the Kshatriyas. So I hope that answers the question. All right, I'm going to address this once and for all, and hopefully this will be the final siddhanta, the final conclusion on this. And this is the question. Namaste Acharyaji. Many, and that's not true, it's not many, some in the Vedic community state that the Bhavishya Purana is an adulterated scripture written during a time of British rule with corrupted or bribed Brahmins. Any truth to this? Zero truth to this. Zero truth to this. I have heard this many, many times, and this is not a reflection on you, I'm talking about previous times when I heard this, among extremely uneducated Hindus. And when I say uneducated, I mean individuals who know nothing about Vedic spirituality. No, the Bhavishya Purana is not a recent Purana written 200 or 300 years ago by the British in order to Christianize Hinduism and introduce the idea of Jesus among the Hindus in order to convert them and blah, blah, blah. That is untrue. And how can I say with such force that it is untrue? Very simple. The Bhavishya Purana is itself mentioned again and again and again in the accepted Puranas as being a legitimate Purana. We have Puranas that are 4,000, 5,000, even older than this, years old, that mention the Bhavishya Purana. Indeed, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the exact verse slips my mind, but you can easily look this up. You just have to do a search. Even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it lists the Bhavishya Purana as one of the 18 accepted Mahapuranas. To make it even clearer, you see, in this verse, and again, I can't remember exactly where it is, but you please feel free to look it up. In this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in order to make it even more clear which Puranas are being spoken of, in this verse, or I believe it's several verses in a row, the Srimad Bhagavatam names a Purana and then tells you how many verses is in it, and names a Purana and tells you how many verses is in it, so that there's no mistaking. And the Bhavishya Purana is one of those Puranas. So how is it possible that the Bhavishya Purana is 200-300 years old when it's mentioned, at the very least in the Srimad Bhagavatam? I've seen it mentioned in many Puranas that are thousands of years old. That's an impossibility. So indeed, as far as the Puranas, there are, and again, everyone accepts this. Anyone who's educated in Vedic spirituality, which again is not many people who even consider themselves to be Hindu, but those who are educated understand there are 18 what are called Mahapuranas, 18 major ones, and then there are 18 minor Puranas. Of the 18 major Puranas, the Bhavishya Purana in every list is there. Period. So this idea that the Bhavishya Purana was created by Christian missionaries to convert people, this is done by very uneducated, let's say, Indian nationalists who really themselves do not know ideologically how to fight back against Christian missionaries. And any mention of Jesus, even in their own, what's supposed to be their own Vedic scriptures, confuses them and triggers them. And those are the individuals who make this false claim, individuals who are uneducated and who are easily triggered. No, Jesus is accepted as a Dharma master in the tradition of Sanatana Dharma, and very specifically in the Shastra, in the Vedic scriptures of Sanatana Dharma, of which Bhavishya Purana is one and is recognized as an authentic Purana by the other Puranas. Period. This is the Siddhanta. This is the conclusion. So thus, those individuals who make that claim that the Bhavishya Purana is a fraudulent Purana are fools and uneducated. They don't know anything. So I hope this finally lays that to rest. The Bhavishya Purana is real. Very good. So with that, going to go on a little bit more. And again, please, if I'm skipping your question, please don't misinterpret and think that it was a bad question somehow. Even with the added amount of time that we have, I know that we're not going to be able to get to all the questions. So, if we do, I'll come back to questions that I've skipped. But for now, I'm trying my best to answer those questions that are either especially interesting or that I think people need to hear the answer to, like the last one. Very good. Here's another interesting question. What is the definition of a universe physically and metaphysically according to Sanatana Dharma? Can beings be reborn in different universes? And if so, is this common? Very good. Excellent question, actually. Let me try to answer this in brief, but at the same time, give what I hope will be a satisfactory answer. Indeed, a universe is known as a Brahmanda, That is the actual name of a universe. As far as what a universe is physically, there are indeed multiple universes. We'll get to that in the second part of your question, but there are indeed multiple universes. This universe that we find ourselves currently situated in is certainly not the only one, but there are many. So to state this as far as the actual physical, because you ask about the physical and the metaphysical definitions, aspects, let's say, of a given universe. Physically speaking, there is the spiritual realm, which consists of 3/4 of reality. But then there is that other 1/4 of reality that is indeed prakriti, that is materiality. And it is in materiality, within this, let's say, sector of materiality, that you have all of these multiple universes. The reason why this sector exists is indeed for those individual Atmans who fall into illusion and who thus need a realm in which they can, let's say, in which they can explore their artificial identity. So their egoic self. That is the material sector in general. Within that sector, there are indeed an unlimited number of universes that are constantly coming into being, persisting for some time, going out of being. Each one of these is known as a Brahmanda, or universe. Physically speaking, each universe is a devolved insentient aspect of this energy known as prakriti, which is itself one of the energies, one of the shaktis of God. So that's what each individual universe is. Now, metaphysically speaking, that's very interesting. It's interesting that you ask that. Is there indeed a metaphysical aspect to each universe, including our universe? This alone is actually, interestingly, something we could talk about for a long time. Because you remember that a moment ago I said that each universe on the physical level is insentient in itself. That is, it is a rupa, a form manifestation of what in actuality is an energy of God, which is an insentient energy. Now, all this being the case, there is another aspect of any given universe that is not merely a physical insentient thing with multiple other sub-things within it, but there is indeed also a metaphysical aspect. That is the spiritual aspect. So thus there is the Mahapurusha. There is God, as God is ever present even within any given material universe. This is sometimes known as the Mahapurusha. This is sometimes known as the Vishvarupa. That is the universal form of God in any given universe. That is, God as God is interpenetrating the insentient. That is, God as the sentient interpenetrating the insentient, that is the material universe, and giving it its everything, giving it its sustenance, its mode of being. So God not being present within the universe wouldn't even have being itself, etc. So that is, let's say, the metaphysical aspect of the universe. So the universe is an insentient thing that also is inhabited by God. So thus the sentient aspect. And then ultimately, of course, by all of us, by an untold number of also sentient beings who are here reincarnating. So that's what a given universe is. Now you ask, can beings be reborn in different universes? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. There's nothing preventing an individual who is in this universe, for example, passing away and then being born in a different universe, and vice versa. We can be born in any given universe. And what determines which universe we are born in, very simply, is karma. So once we engage in ethical activity, karma is then born for us, personal karma. That being the case, now we have to fulfill that karma, and now that being the case, we need to go to that sector in which that karma can be fulfilled. Sometimes that's not here. Sometimes it needs to be a different universe. So that is indeed the case, that beings can be reborn in different universes. And then you ask, and if so, is this common? It's about as common as any other phenomenon like this. It's common. It can certainly happen. Again, it's all in accordance with the individual and what their specific karma happens to be. So it is indeed very possible that a person can be can pass away in this universe, be reborn in another universe, or vice versa. Very good. Very good. Give me a few more moments as I just look at these questions. Very good. Alexander Phillips asks a good question, actually. Is the date when the Kali Yuga begins and ends predetermined, or can people's actions shorten or extend the length of the yugas? Excellent question. Let me tell you, it is predetermined. It is predetermined, and when I say predetermined, it's predetermined as far as being quite literally as strict as physics, as strict as time itself. You know, if it's 2 o'clock my time, it's 2 o'clock my time. It's not some other time. If it's the year 2022 in our calendar, given where we are, our perceptions, etc., that is the year. So in the same way, when a yuga begins, when it ends, is not only set in stone, but it's set in stone in accordance with astronomy, in accordance with astrology, in accordance with so many different factors, such that there's nothing that human beings can do to alter that date. You know, there's quite literally nothing that we can do. It is as strict as what is our birthday. I was born on a certain date, in a certain month, in a certain year, and it doesn't matter how much I will for something to be the case. I can't change that. You know, if I was born in a certain year, I can't make it actually the case that I was born 10 years later. Some of us would like that. Many of us would like to change the date, but no, it's determined and it can't be changed. In the same way, that is true about the yugas as well. And indeed, the dates of the yugas, are indeed there in the Vedic scriptures, etc. So I hope that answers the question. There are some things that even the vast collectivity of human desire cannot change. And that's one of them. Very good. And again, I am not going to answer political questions of any sort whatsoever. So you may want to ask a different spiritual question, not political, because you're not going to have an answer. Oh, here's an interesting question. Namaste, Acharyaji. How does Atlantis fit in with Aryavarta? Is it a precursor or a descendant of the ancient Varta kingdom? It is a precursor, and it's not the same. It's not the same. Atlantis is one thing, Aryavarta is another. And it's very unfortunate when people talk about these ancient lands, ancient kingdoms, ancient civilizations, when they try to conflate them and say that, oh, they're all talking about the same thing, or maybe these three different things are referring to the same thing. No, there have, throughout the history of just the last 4 yugas alone, forget about previous yugas, I mean previous cycles, just in the last 4 yugas alone, there have been untold number of civilizations, of which Aryavarta, Atlantis, these are just 2. Kumari Kandam is another very important continent that also, like Atlantis, sunk under the ocean. Kumari Kandam was a continent that existed a little bit south of present-day India, and it was a massive civilization and continent. This is spoken about by the Tamil Sangam literature, etc. So indeed, there have been many of these civilizations in the past. Many of them we don't even remember anymore. They're not even spoken about anymore because the records have been lost. So the idea of an Atlantis, an Aryavarta, Kumarikandam, these are not fantasy. These are not just made up. No, these are real, and they're, again, only a small number of many civilizations that have existed in the past. But no, Atlantis existed. Well, let me say Atlantis went out of existence thousands of years before Aryavarta did. So that is the timeline. Very good. Here's an interesting question. It's kind of a general question. How can we help some of the Zoomers? Very interesting question. And really, it's a matter of how can we help the Zoomers, or will in the future possibly the Zoomers help us once they have awakened. But the way that we help Zoomers, that is individuals who are quite young, I don't know what the exact cutoff is as far as age, but let's say individuals who are roughly under 20 years old, something like that. We help them in the same way that we help anyone else. And that is, first, we understand them. We understand what their problems are. We understand why they have the problems that they do. And understanding the principles of Dharma and Dharma philosophy, that is quite easy to understand. Why it is that certain individuals, regardless of their age or generation, why they are suffering, and what is the solution to that suffering. But it comes from, again, understanding these individuals and then giving them the answers and the direction that they are so desperately seeking. See, this is what's interesting. This is true for Zoomers. This is true for millennials. This is true for so many people in this world, that as, well, let me put it this way. Individuals in our world today are seeking direction. They're seeking guidance. They are seeking leadership, even if they claim that they are not. And a few are not. A tiny number of these individuals are indeed so radically egotistical that they will never take good guidance from anyone. But we're not talking about fools, people who are truly, truly fools. We're talking about the vast majority of innocent individuals. People want guidance. People want direction. People are seeking leadership, whether they are conscious and aware of that or not. Indeed, I have said this a million times, and a million times is not enough. The one thing, practically speaking, that we are missing today more than any other factor in our world today are real and authentic leaders. People who can give actual guidance. Well, the Zoomers, like so many other individuals, need guidance, and they need guidance that is authentic, that is authorized, where when they hear it, they understand the wisdom behind that guidance. So this, more than anything, is what people need. So if you want to help Zoomers very specifically, become the sort of individual who, due to your own spiritual progress, due to the weight of your own gravitas, of your own wisdom, of your own spiritual practice that has brought you to a certain level of advancement, be the sort of individual who, when you try to help them, they will take you seriously. See, this is how you know a real leader more than anything, is that regardless of the audience, when that leader opens their mouth, people take them seriously. Be that sort of person, regardless of your audience. Be the sort of person who, when you open your mouth, when you are there before them, they take you seriously. And that's what we're missing today. Leaders with that level of gravitas, of gravity. But such leaders are coming. Such leaders are coming. Indeed, the ISDS, this is what we do, is we create such leaders. The leaders are coming. You also strive to be such a leader. Very good. Very good. Here's another very interesting question. Namaste, Acharyaji. Did the Atman have a spiritual body before falling into illusion? No. No, absolutely not. Indeed, the actual svarupa, the actual perfected form, the true form of the Atman, is something that is always there in seed form. It's always something there that is meant to eventually come to the fore. But before falling into illusion, indeed, no, that is not developed. The reason why that is the case is because what develops that body, what really reveals that spiritual body, is bhakti. What reveals that spiritual form, that svarupa, is indeed perfect devotion, shuddha bhakti, perfect devotion toward God. So it is as a result of developing that bhakti that the spiritual form is revealed. So that being the case, previous to falling, when bhakti was not something that was expressed, because we were Atmans who were there in the Brahmajyoti. So thus bhakti was not something that was fully formed at that time. It wouldn't have been possible for there to have been an actual svarupa, an actual spiritual form of the Atman. That comes later, and more, the reason why the svarupa, the spiritual form, the spiritual body, one could say, if you want to use that terminology. The reason why this spiritual form of the Atman comes to the fore is precisely so that the Atman now can serve Sriman Narayana in Vaikuntha. So, indeed, previous to falling, that spiritual form is not there. Very good. Varsaga says, thank you, Acharyaji, for answering my question. My pleasure. You always ask very good questions. Very nice comment here. The Bhagavad Gita reaffirmed my faith in Christ/Krishna. Very nice, wonderful. I'm actually very, very happy to hear that. Indeed, the Bhagavad Gita is truly an amazing text. The Bhagavad Gita, and I've said this many times, both verbally and in writing as well, the Bhagavad Gita is the most important, the most profound spiritual dialogue ever recorded in the history of humanity. And there have been many, many, many different dialogues in many different philosophical traditions, both among Western kind, but also Chinese philosophy, Indian philosophy, or let's say South Asian philosophy, etc., etc. Of all the various dialogue texts philosophically that have been written, the Bhagavad Gita is the most important, it's the most profound. And more than anything, it's not merely because of the intellectual content and just the amazing nature of the answers that are given in this text. It is also because of the feel of the text. And let me explain what I mean by this. For those individuals who are spiritually advanced and sensitive enough, when you read the Bhagavad Gita, even for the very first time, the sense that you get is that indeed this is a text unlike any other text. It's not merely a work of speculation by a so-called brilliant mind, but rather the overwhelming feeling that you get when you read the Bhagavad Gita, and this was the feeling I had when I read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time at the age of 10, was that this is God speaking to you. Not someone's interpretation of God, not someone's idea of God, not some sectarian vision of what God must be. But rather, when you read the words of Krishna, the overwhelming sense that you have is that this is God speaking to you and indeed revealing truth to you. This is why the Bhagavad Gita is not merely a text. It is the living words of God. When approaching the Bhagavad Gita, it is like we are approaching a person. It is like we are approaching God. And this is the way to ultimately approach our reading of the Bhagavad Gita. That when we are reading the Bhagavad Gita, we have to envision that indeed we are sitting at the very feet of Bhagavan himself, of God himself, and God himself is instructing us. When this happens, the insight and the experience that you derive from reading Bhagavad Gita is unlike reading any other work, any other book upon the face of the earth. So I'm very happy that you made this wonderful statement about Bhagavad Gita. And please continue your study of Bhagavad Gita. and the other Vedic texts as well, Upanishads, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. So thank you for that wonderful comment. Billy Rogers asks a very nice question, and it is essentially asking when the current darkness in the world will end. Let me give you this answer. Soon. Soon. Within your lifetime, for sure. Soon, this darkness is going to end. And when it ends, it's going to end quickly. Thank you for that question. Very good. Here's an interesting question. What is the level of knowledge we might have lost due to shaky history of medieval India, like the loss of universities, like Ramayana from the Satya Yuga and the Mahabharata, which is a political situation of the Dwapara Yuga? Have we lost many of such histories due to this destruction? Very good. Good question. And this also, as you can well imagine, this is something that I can answer. It would take an hour to go into the entire history of history, the entire history of how indeed we have lost our history. But let me just make this very general statement. First of all, this has nothing to do with India. This has to do with the world. This has to do with the world. This has nothing to do with contemporary India, post-independence. Rather, this has to do with the Vedic world. You see, at one time in the Dwapara Yuga, and then previous to that as well, Sanatana Dharma was the culture. It was the philosophical system. It was the worldview of, indeed, our entire planet. And that means everything from Ireland to the Philippines, including everything in between. And think of everything in between. This means all of Europe. This means all of Asia, including the Middle East, including Central Asia, including South Asia, Southeast Asia, etc. It includes the Americas, and on and on and on and on. Sanatana Dharma at one time was indeed the worldview and the culture of our planet, of Bhudevi. Now, with that understanding, indeed, the majority of our actual history has been lost. And not merely due to the destruction of the universities in India, due to invaders who came in and destroyed these universities and burnt the libraries, but the destruction of the the Library of Alexandria, and so many other libraries throughout the world that have also been systematically destroyed over time by Abrahamists. So the truth of the matter is, yes, indeed, there was the destruction of important texts that talked about history. But more than this, for the last roughly 250 years or so, give or take, there has also been, in addition to the wanton destruction of ancient texts, there has also been the systematic and purposeful revision of world history. In other words, there's a lot of information that we indeed still actually have, but it's been hidden, it's been perverted, it's been changed, it's been rewritten. Indeed, we see that happening today, where we have individuals who, for political reasons, are trying to destroy our history. Even the history of America, even the history of one nation going back 150, 200 years. We see this process happening even today, literally 2021. What to speak of what's been happening by corrupted scholars for the last, again, roughly 250 years, give or take. So indeed, the actual history of humanity is not something that the majority of individuals quite comprehend. It is something that is going to have to be pieced together again, and it will be in this coming golden age that is going to occur. Our true history will indeed be restored, will be pieced together again, and will be once again openly known by the majority of humanity. So I hope that answers the question. Here's a very nice comment from Evan. Namaste Acharyaji. I just read your book, Sanatana Dharma, the Eternal Natural Way, and it has been an invaluable guide that I have been studying closely. Thank you for writing this work. Thank you so much, Evan, for that absolutely wonderful comment. I truly, truly appreciate it. Sanatana Dharma, the Eternal Natural Way, it is indeed the most important book of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. It is, one could say, our philosophical, and I can't stand to use this word, but it's used in common parlance. It is our philosophical Bible, one could say, for the ISDS. It is the systematic exposition of what is Dharma. And it was indeed a labor of love. You know, the work itself is over 450 pages, very dense philosophy that is there, and it is an attempt to explain the full worldview of Sanatana Dharma. And I thank you again very much for that wonderful comment. Very good. Here's a nice question from Ruth. Namaste Acharyaji. Do you foresee a global manifestation of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional beings to usher in a golden age? If so, do you have a sense of timing? Indeed, this is one of the things that will happen, that will occur, especially during the golden age. As far as extraterrestrial, we need to be very careful about this term, because sadly, when it comes to, let's say, other off-world beings who are much more subtle and quote-unquote powerful than humans, this term extraterrestrial unfortunately brings too much baggage with it, including science fiction ideas and indeed ideas from modern science that really have nothing to do with these beings. Let me just say there are indeed, how did you state it, extra-dimensional, let's say higher beings, both good and bad, but we're talking about the good beings certainly. There are indeed extremely advanced beings who are not physical in nature, who are benevolent. We call them the gods and goddesses. We call them the devas and devis, who we will indeed have contact with during this golden age, in the same way that we did in the past. Indeed, it's stated in the Vedic scriptures that in the previous age, in the Dvapara Yuga, during that age, it was quite possible for human beings and the gods to speak face to face. Well, that will occur again. And indeed, many subtle but beneficent beings who either have left our planet or who have gone dormant in the last 5,000 years will, again, no longer be hidden. And in the future, we will be encountering many of these truly wonderful beings. So this will indeed occur. As far as the time, I'm not going to give such dates, but it will happen. So let's take happiness in knowing that. Very good. Here's another very good question from Mr. Oldenswolf. Thank you for all you do, Sri Acharyaji. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for being here as often as you are and asking good questions. Does the Atman originate from the Brahmajyoti? Absolutely, yes. The Atman does indeed originate from the Brahmajyoti. This has always been the conclusion of Sanatana Dharma, of Vedic spirituality. Indeed, let's say that the Atmans originally are within the Brahmajyoti, and they are sustained by the Brahmajyoti. The actual Brahmajyoti itself is the luster that comes from the eternal form of Sriman Narayana. That's what the Brahmajyoti actually is, and thus it is in actuality non-different. Let's say it's non-different from God, being again, the luster of God, but within that Brahmajyoti, you find an unlimited number, an infinite number of individual units of consciousness. And those are the Atmans. And it is from here that the Atmans originate, quote unquote. Of course, it gets tricky when you then try to translate what is meant by origination in a realm that is beyond both time and causality. But let us just say, using human language and English, which is a very imperfect human language compared to Sanskrit and even other languages, even Latin actually. Let us just say that the Atman itself originates from the Brahmajyoti and is sustained by, is within the Brahmajyoti. It's not that the Atmans are the Brahmajyoti. They are within the Brahmajyoti as manifestations individuated of that Brahmajyoti. So yes, this is indeed where the Atmans originate. At a certain point, individuation takes place. The sense of self, of aham pratyaya, of I-ness begins to happen to an individual Atman, then sense of myself and other, then desire and free will, etc., etc. All of these various attributes of Atman itself. And then at that point, especially once free will develops, of course, there is choice. And then the Atman indeed has the choice to pursue its aham pratyaya, that is its true sense of I-ness, its I cognition, its true self, and to do this in service to God. Or it has the ability to choose, rather than aham pratyaya, ahamkara, that is artificial self, false self, due to envy, due to jealousy, due to sentiments that are below its stature, below its inherent stature. And that latter choice being the case, those are the Atmans who then come to the material realm. And who, it is our hope that in time they will realize the nature of their mistake, having chosen artificial identity versus true identity, and they will eventually pursue authentic spirituality and come to the point of liberation and continue their actual spiritual journey toward Vaikuntha, toward the actual kingdom of God. So that is our journey in a nutshell. All right, this will be the last question I think that I will answer, only because it's already past the hour and I try to limit things to approximately an hour, give or take, usually give. And as I predicted, even skipping a whole bunch of questions, I have not even come close to answering people's all the questions that are here. But this is a good question from Siddharth Maini. And it is, Acharyaji, can you please comment on the way to restore Vedic Dharma in India? I do agree with you that many nationalists in India are but reacting counterproductively instead of being proactive. Yes, very good question. And I do indeed want to answer this. Indeed, in my one book known as the Dharma Manifesto, I do indeed address this. I believe it's an entire chapter, actually, where I talk about what is commonly called Hindu nationalism, Indian nationalism, Hindutva, etc. And I do indeed describe how, while overall this is indeed a movement that I personally see as something positive, indeed, at one time, 25 years ago, I actually was associated with, meaning that I knew and was quite close to quite a few of the top, let's say, Hindutva people in the world, including people very, very high up in the RSS, BJP, certainly individuals who were Hindu nationalist activists in America. I spoke at many of their events, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, 25 years ago, I knew many of these leaders actually quite personally. However, At the same time, we have to recognize that Hindu nationalism, or again, whatever you want to call it, in India is something that is quite mixed. On the one hand, overall, it is a positive thing. Indeed, these individuals have a common sense of, well, they want to reclaim the glory of the past, of ancient times, which is always a wonderful thing, actually. Every people, regardless of their nationality or ethnicity, should indeed seek to do this. They should honor their ancestors. They should honor their traditions. They should honor the quote-unquote past, which, truthfully, if we're wise, when we look at the past, we don't see something that is archaic. We see something that is ancient and beautiful. So in that sense, Hindu nationalism is a very good thing. On the other hand, sadly, many of the Hindu nationalists, even the ones who I knew personally, who I just mentioned, again, I will not at any point mention their names, were motivated more by materialistic nationalism than by anything remotely connected to actual spirituality. So now, to answer your question, how to restore Vedic Dharma in India, indeed, this is something that needs to be done. This is a project that is actually very close to my heart. And the way that it needs to be done is indeed by individuals in India, meaning starting with, hopefully, a group of leaders who will arise, who will begin to encourage Sanatana Dharma in philosophy and actual practice. In other words, not seeing, Sanatana Dharma as just a synonymous name with Hinduism, and then Hinduism meaning basically just an ethnicity. If you're Indian, you're Hindu. If you're Hindu, you're Indian. But no, we need leaders who understand that what it means to follow Sanatana Dharma is that it is a philosophy based upon the Vedic scriptures and more. It is a practice. It is something that is meant to be practiced on a day-to-day basis. So in other words, we need leaders who will start a movement in India to tell individuals it is not enough to simply say, "Main Hindu hu," I am Hindu. It is not enough to simply be a nominal Hindu, but rather they need to understand that what it means to be a follower of Sanatana Dharma is that you meditate every day, that you do puja every day, that you visit the temple, that you study the Vedic scriptures, that you do everything in your power to be a personification of Dharma in such a way that envision millions of Indian Hindus in India who are so perfectly incorporating and personifying Dharma in their life that when others look upon them, they see perfect examples of what it means to be a follower of Sanatana Dharma. You see, the Hindu nationalist movement, everything that I've just said, they can't even conceive of. It's a matter of winning office. It's a matter of winning elections, sadly. It is a purely political / somewhat cultural movement. What we need is a truly spiritual movement. We need a spiritual restoration of Sanatana Dharma as a living spiritual force in India throughout the length and breadth of not only India, but all of South Asia, including Pakistan, including Nepal, including Bangladesh, including Sri Lanka, including all of these areas that surround India itself. Once this happens and people truly embrace what it means to be a follower of Sanatana Dharma spiritually, in both understanding and practice, then there will be a restoration of pure Vedic Dharma in India, the likes of which has not been seen for thousands of years. And India, at that point, will be truly a light to the world. And that is our hope. And more, it's not just a hope. It will happen. It will happen. We love India. We love our Indian brothers and sisters, our Hindu brothers and sisters, very much. So with that, I'm going to stop here, because as it is, we went a little bit over time. but of necessity, and I don't think anyone's complaining. And again, as always, this will be the last time of my saying this year. Again, I apologize to those individuals for who I could not get to your questions. As you see, there are still so many questions I could not get to, and we're already over time. But again, I want to truly, from the very bottom of my heart and with all sincerity, I want to thank you all for being here, for these live streams that we began doing less than 2 years ago, and for being part of our family, being part of this wonderful community every Monday. Today is Tuesday. We decided to skip a day, but usually we meet on Mondays, and every Monday we have had these live streams for over 2 years, and so many of you have been here. Some of you have been here for every single one. Many of you have been here for the majority of these. For some of you, maybe this is your first time here. If so, welcome. But I want to thank all of you for being here, and I truly consider you to be my family. People say things like that all the time. In this particular case, I cannot emphasize enough how much I truly mean that. You truly are my family, and I love you all. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. Thank you again for your prayers. And the next time we get together, it will be the new year. I look forward to seeing all of you next year, 2022. A little bit less than a week, in about 6 days. In the meantime, I ask all of you to please, again, be hopeful. Oh, the world has gone crazy, but it's not going to last much longer. Never, ever lose hope that we are going to see a golden age, and we're going to see it soon. And with that, everyone, I offer my obeisances unto you. Namaste, namaste. Jaya Sriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Surya Vangsha Jayate. Om Hari Om. And with that, everyone, as always, I ask you to please take very good care of yourselves in every way. And I will see you again in 2022.